Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Siska Anggina Putri. I'm a moderator in this group. My colleagues is Maulida Rahmi and Sindi Aulatifa. We are from group 7. In this video, we will to explain the material about communicative approach. Communicative language teaching. Communicative language teaching is an approach to language teaching and learning. It involves knowledge of the language itself, social rules of it, and knowing how language changes depending of the context. It is, in other words, in a communicative classroom. Students interact to create meaningful communication. Communicative activities can be more controlled to build accuracy in language use. However, they can also be less teacher-controlled in other build fluency. Here are two versions of a communicative role play activity for an accuracy role play. Put students into pairs and give each of them a dialogue with the student. Then take turns practicing the dialogue with a specific accuracy. In mind, for example, you might ask students to practice using proper intonation when asking questions. While the students are talking, you can move around in the room to correct any mistakes. For a fluency role play, which you do not give students a pre-written dialogue. Instead, you assign each group of students a scenario to dialogue about. For example, you might tell students to pretend that they are talking together after a car accident. The student could take on roles such as police officer, driver 2, and the witness. They can then freely ask each other questions when acting out the car accident scenario. The next material will be explained by Maulida Rahmi.
The next material is natural approach. The natural approach was developed by Tracy Terrell and Stephen Krashen. It is based on the language acquisition theory developed by Krashen. The native language should not be used in the classroom. A lot of vocabulary should be exposed to the student. A lot of activities should be developed. The natural approach is a method for beginners based on observation and interpretation on how a person acquires his or her first language. It rejects the formal organization of language. It is not based on grammar. It is based on communication. It emphasizes calm principle and meaningful practice activities, rather than production of grammatically perfect sentences. Language is viewed as a vehicle for communicating meanings and messages. The lexicon for both perception and production is considered critical in the construction of messages. Principles of communicative language teaching. Make real communication the focus of language learning. Provide opportunities for learners to experiment and try out what they know. Provide opportunities for learners to develop both accuracy and fluency. Link the different skills such as speaking, reading, and listening together, since they usually occur so in the real world. Let students induce or discover grammar rules. Be tolerant of learners' errors, as they indicate that the learner is building up his or her communicative competence. Focus more on achieving communicative competence with students without neglecting grammatical competence, and on fluency without neglecting accuracy. This method appeared in 1983. in book called The Natural Approach, written by Tracy Terrell and Stephen Krashen. The natural approach works based on the use of language in communicative situations without recourse to the native language and without reference to grammatical analysis. The natural approach is based on the principles of naturalistic language learning in young children. There is an emphasis on exposure, on input. The central component of language is not grammar, it is communication.
Krashen's language acquisition theory principal tenets of this theory are following the acquisition learning hypothesis. There are two distinctive ways of developing competence in second language acquisition and learning. Acquisition is an unconscious process that involves the naturalistic development of language proficiency through understanding and using language for meaningful communication. The moniker hypothesis conscious learning can function only as a monitor that checks and repairs the output. Therefore, acquisition is always much better for learning. The natural order hypothesis: certain grammatical structures are anchored before others. For instance, of the present tense is acquired before of the past tense. The input hypothesis: we acquire language best by understanding input that is slightly beyond their current level of competence. The affective filter hypothesis: the emotional states and the attitudes are an adjustable filter that fully passes or blocks input necessarily to acquisition. The student needs motivation, self-confidence, and low anxiety. For recommendation for the English class, the first is there should be a lot of compressible input. The second is whatever helps compression is important. Visual aids are useful, as is exposure to a wide range of vocabulary rather than study of syntactic structures. The third is the focus in the classroom should be on listening, and reading speaking should be allowed to emerge. And the last is, in order to lower the affective filter, you need worship center on meaningful communication rather than on foreign input. Should be interesting and so contribute to a relaxed classroom atmosphere.
Okay, that's all the presentation from our group. See you next video and thank you.